Imagine America after the Civil War, a nation healing, but also looking west. Vast frontiers beckoned, rich in resources and opportunity, yet separated by immense distances and formidable natural barriers. The dream of connecting the Atlantic to the Pacific by rail was not new, but it was revolutionary. It promised to shrink a continent, unleash unprecedented commerce, and bind a fragmented nation together. This wasn't just about tracks and trains. It was about forging a new economic destiny for an entire country, an ambition on a scale never before attempted. But who would dare take on such an impossible task? It would require not only engineering genius, but an almost unimaginable amount of capital, political savvy, and sheer, unrelenting will. The idea had floated for decades, a grand vision often dismissed as lunacy. Presidents dreamed of it, engineers debated routes, but the financial and logistical hurdles seemed insurmountable. This was a challenge that demanded more than vision. It demanded ruthlessness, a gambler's nerve, and an ironclad belief in an uncertain future. Enter four ambitious merchants from Sacramento, California: Leland Stanford, a former governor and shrewd businessman; Collis Huntington, a tough hardware wholesaler; Mark Hopkins, a meticulous accountant; and Charles Crocker, a dynamic dry goods merchant. They were known locally as the Big Four. None of them were railroad men, engineers, or even major financiers. They were opportunistic entrepreneurs, deeply ingrained in the burgeoning California economy, but united by an audacious dream that eclipsed their humble beginnings. Their initial capital? Almost nothing. Their expertise in railroad construction? Minimal. Their credit? Untested for such a colossal undertaking. Many scoffed at their proposal, seeing it as nothing more than a pipe dream fueled by naive ambition. Banks wouldn't touch it. Established railroad magnates dismissed them as amateurs. They faced ridicule and skepticism from every quarter, underscoring just how monumental and improbable their venture truly appeared to the established financial powers of the day. Despite the widespread doubt, in 1861 they officially incorporated the Central Pacific Railroad Company of California. Their goal? To build east from Sacramento, over the formidable Sierra Nevada mountains, and connect with a railroad coming from the east. It was a race against time and nature, against rival companies, and against the immense skepticism of the financial world. They secured the initial charter not with vast wealth, but with audacious promises and a belief bordering on fanaticism.
The most immediate and daunting obstacle was the Sierra Nevada. These mountains were a natural fortress, with sheer granite cliffs, deep canyons, and snowdrifts reaching 50 feet or more in winter. Simply surveying a route was an epic challenge, let alone blasting tunnels and laying tracks across its treacherous peaks. This wasn't merely a construction project, it was a war against geology, a test of human endurance against some of the most unforgiving terrain on the continent, demanding unprecedented engineering solutions. To fund this colossal ambition, the Big Four initially pooled their own meager resources, took out personal loans, and sold stock to local investors who shared their vision, or perhaps their naive optimism. But these funds were a drop in the bucket compared to the billions required. They faced constant cash flow crises, often teetering on the brink of bankruptcy, forced to personally guarantee debts and scrape together every last dollar. Their early financing was a desperate hand-to-mouth struggle against overwhelming odds. The breakthrough came with federal support. The Pacific Railway Acts of 1862 and 1864 offered massive incentives, 10 miles of land grants for every mile of track laid, along with government bonds. 30-year 6% bonds were granted, $16,000 per mile for track on flatland, $32,000 for foothills, and a staggering $48,000 for mountains. This federal lifeline transformed a speculative venture into a potentially viable, albeit still incredibly risky, enterprise. With federal backing, the Big Four devised a controversial, yet brilliant, financing maneuver. They created the Contract and Finance Company. Ostensibly an independent construction company, it was entirely owned by the Big Four themselves. This shell company then received the lucrative contracts from the Central Pacific to build the railroad. This allowed them to massively overcharge the Central Pacific, channeling federal subsidies and bond money directly into their own pockets, ensuring enormous personal profits even if the railroad itself struggled financially. The monumental task of building through the Sierra Nevadas demanded an army of laborers. Initial attempts to hire Irish and European immigrants proved challenging. Many deserted for the goldfields. Charles Crocker then suggested hiring Chinese immigrants, despite widespread prejudice. Thousands answered the call, enduring incredibly harsh conditions, low pay, and discrimination. Their disciplined, tireless work ethic and their ingenious methods for blasting rock became the backbone of the Central Pacific's progress through the mountains.
The engineering challenges were unprecedented. The workers blasted 15 tunnels through solid granite, including the formidable Summit Tunnel, which alone took over 2 years to complete. They used nitroglycerin, picks, shovels, and sheer muscle. Trestles were built over gaping ravines, tracks laid on steep grades, all while battling blizzards, avalanches, and the constant threat of rock slides. Each foot of progress was hard-won, a testament to human ingenuity and the immense, often forgotten sacrifice of the laborers. Meanwhile, from the east, the Union Pacific Railroad was also racing westward. The government offered identical incentives, creating an intense cutthroat competition. Every mile laid meant more land and more government bonds. This rivalry fueled incredible feats of speed, but also led to widespread corruption, particularly with the Union Pacific's Credit Mobilier scandal, where their own construction company also funneled profits to investors. The race was on, driven by both national ambition and personal avarice. Life for the railroad workers was brutal. Days were long, dangers ever present. Many perished from accidents, disease, or avalanches. The Chinese laborers, living in makeshift camps, often worked for less pay and in more hazardous conditions than their white counterparts. Despite these hardships, their determination was unwavering. They worked from sunrise to sunset, transforming an impossible dream into tangible progress, inch by painful inch, their contributions forming the very bedrock of America's continental link. Logistics posed another monumental hurdle. All rails, locomotives, tools, and supplies for the Central Pacific had to be shipped by sea from the East Coast, a perilous journey around Cape Horn at the southern tip of South America. This meant months of waiting for crucial supplies, making efficient planning and inventory management absolutely critical. The sheer scale of material transport for this remote construction site was an unprecedented logistical challenge, pushing the limits of global shipping in its era. Throughout the project, the Big Four maintained a relentless presence in Washington, D.C., lobbying Congress and influencing public opinion. They were masters of political maneuvering, ensuring continued federal support and favorable interpretations of the Railway Acts. Collis Huntington, in particular, became a legendary figure in the Capitol, often using his influence and charm to secure the legislation and appropriations vital for the Central Pacific's survival and eventual success. Political capital was as crucial as financial capital.
While the Central Pacific grappled with mountains, the Union Pacific, building from Omaha, Nebraska, faced different challenges: vast plains, hostile Native American tribes, and, most famously, rampant financial corruption. The Credit Mobilier scandal, involving congressmen and vice presidents, exposed how insiders profited by overcharging the government for construction. This became one of the most infamous financial scandals of the era, casting a long shadow over the entire Transcontinental Railroad project, highlighting the era's blend of ambition and avarice. The Big Four maintained absolute, almost dictatorial, control over every aspect of the Central Pacific. They made all major decisions, personally approved expenditures, and even selected the route. Mark Hopkins, the meticulous accountant, kept a famously tight rein on finances. This centralized, unwavering leadership, while attracting criticism for its insularity, was arguably essential for navigating the immense complexities and risks of such a groundbreaking project. Their personal fortunes were entirely tied to its success. As their wealth grew exponentially, so did public scrutiny and criticism. The Big Four became symbols of the Gilded Age's unchecked corporate power, often accused of ruthless business practices, exploiting labor, and corrupting politics. Caricatures in newspapers depicted them as greedy monopolists. Despite their monumental achievement, their methods fueled a growing public debate about wealth inequality, corporate accountability, and the proper role of government in regulating burgeoning industries. Their success came with a steep price in public perception. The race intensified in its final years. Both companies pushed their crews to lay track at incredible speeds. Charles Crocker, the energetic superintendent, famously organized his Chinese workers into competing teams, achieving an astonishing feat: 10 miles of track laid in a single day, on flat ground, a record that stood for decades. This relentless drive for speed, fueled by financial incentives, was a testament to the organizational power and sheer physical endurance of the workforce, pushing limits previously thought impossible. Finally, in the spring of 1869, the two railroads neared their meeting point in Utah Territory. The Central Pacific had conquered the Sierras, and the Union Pacific had crossed the vast plains. The exact point of linkage, Promontory Summit, was chosen, sparking a national excitement. The arduous journey, fraught with financial perils, human sacrifice, and engineering miracles, was drawing to a close. A continent, once divided by untamed wilderness, was about to become one. On May 10, 1869, the continent was officially connected. At Promontory Summit, a crowd gathered to witness the driving of the Golden Spike. Leland Stanford, representing the Central Pacific, tapped the ceremonial spike with a silver hammer, signaling the completion of the Transcontinental Railroad. Telegraph lines, connected to the spike, instantly transmitted the news across the nation. It was a moment of profound national pride, marking a new era of expansion and connectivity for America. The immediate impact was transformative. Travel time from coast to coast was slashed from months to a mere week. Goods and people could now move with unprecedented speed, opening new markets and fostering westward migration on a massive scale. The railroad became the literal backbone of America's industrial expansion, fueling cattle drives, mining booms, and agricultural development across the plains. This single infrastructure project fundamentally rewired the nation's economic arteries, fostering continental commerce. For the Big Four, the railroad was an engine of unimaginable wealth. They became some of the richest men in America, establishing vast business empires. Stanford founded Stanford University. Huntington built a vast industrial and shipping empire. Crocker diversified into banking, and Hopkins' fortune passed to his heirs. Their legacy, though often controversial due to their methods, undeniably laid the groundwork for much of California's economic development and America's Gilded Age prosperity. The Transcontinental Railroad didn't just connect two coasts, it knit together a disparate collection of states and territories into a cohesive economic unit. It propelled America onto the world stage as a truly continental power, capable of unprecedented industrial feats. It epitomized the audacious spirit of the Gilded Age, a period of incredible growth and stark inequalities, driven by individual ambition, technological innovation, and a complex, often uneasy partnership between private enterprise and government subsidy. The story of the Golden Spike, the Big Four, and the Central Pacific Railroad is more than just an account of engineering and finance. It's a foundational narrative of American economic history. It reveals how immense national ambition, coupled with ruthless entrepreneurial drive and critical government backing, can literally reshape geography and destiny. It's a powerful reminder that behind every grand narrative of progress, there are intricate financial maneuvers, incredible human sacrifices, and a complex legacy of both triumph and controversy that continues to define us.